Hi guys, my name is Brandon Lay. I'm the course director for the Flash Media class here in the Digital Arts and Design program. I just want to welcome you for coming in today. And I want to start off by introducing, we have Brian Fleming and John Taylor from Rochambeau. They're going to talk about Letter by Letter, their new online social media game. And I'll just hand it off to them, guys.
Hello, thank you all for coming. This is a little overwhelming. We had lights and makeup and all this kind of stuff, but we're really happy to be here. And what we're going to do today, I'd like this to kind of be informal a little bit. We're going to talk to you a little bit about Letter by Letter, which is a new mobile game that we just wrapped up. And I know we probably have a lot of varied types of students in the audience, so we're just going to kind of give an overview of a little bit of the main areas of the game, and then open it up to questions. And the questions could be about this product, it could be about the industry, it could be about how to get into the industry, whatever you guys want to talk about and learn from us is what we'd like to do. So, who are we? John Taylor and Brian Fleming, and you can say.
Yeah, I'm a game designer at Rochambeau. I was a student here a long time ago, like 14, 13 years ago, something like that, forever ago. And I got a job with a record company while I was working, or while I was going to school here. I took that and I got a job doing web development somewhere, and then I started to teach here. I left here, and then went to EA and made Madden for a long time, like 7 years or something like that. And then I left with a bunch of guys from EA to start a mobile game, social game studio, a game studio.
And I'm Brian Fleming, and what on the screen there, our details might look like a lazy copy-paste job, and it is a lazy copy-paste job, but it's also true. I also work on Letter by Letter at Rochambeau, worked at EA for years, and like John, we were both Full Sail students, and we both actually taught here for a little bit. I came to Full Sail, and we both did the digital media degree, which I guess is comparable to digital arts and design now. John was actually my instructor for advanced web design and Flash, things like that. And I worked here for a bit, and then he went to EA, brought me over there, and we've been together ever since. So
Yes.
it's very cute. But yeah, for some of my resume is real brief. I mainly worked on the Tiger Woods games at EA.
What about head coach? The best game ever made.
My first game at EA, NFL head coach. That easily one of the worst games ever made, I would say. It was not fun. It turns out that being a head coach in the NFL, except when you're on the sidelines, is very, very boring. You just sit in your office and answer the phone. It's just a terrible game. But we've moved on from there. And where we ended up is this new company, Rochambeau. We're a startup here in Orlando. We work downtown in the Chase Plaza building. So far, we've put 3 games out. Our first game, Woodland. Is that me?
Yeah, I think it is.
Sorry.
Just don't move your head.
Our first game was called Woodland Heroes, and it was on Facebook. Our mission with that was really to kind of learn how to do it. We'd all been making console games. Oh, goodness. We'd all been making console games for many years, and wanted to get into kind of this free-to-play social phenomenon that was going on. That's where all the money was, and wanted to get on board with that. So, made Woodland Heroes. It was kind of a Cityville/Battleship game, and it was okay. It was well received. It actually got Social Game of the Year from Gamma Sutra, but it's no longer around. We call that sunsetted, which is the nice way of saying that we hit delete on it and you can't play it anymore. But it was a fairly successful game. Knights of the Rose is another Facebook game that we run. That's sort of a strategic battle game, and one of the things that the company kind of started to see was that mobile really seems to be where the industry is going, and we wanted to get a game out on mobile. We didn't know what we were going to do, but we knew we wanted to be there. Letter by Letter eventually became the game. So what is this game? So it's a new twist on word games. There's normally audio with this, but it's just some bouncy music. I can hum it for you if you need. But what is it? I'm going to pop over now and just show the game real quick. And, oops. John, you can probably speak to this better than I can. But the basic gist of the game is it's kind of a cross between Scrabble and Othello.
Yes. So it is. It's like a cross between Scrabble and Othello. While we were making the game, we were trying to get it out as fast as we could, and the day we submitted, the next day, Letterpress came out. I don't know if you guys have played that. No, yes, no. It's very similar to our game, and that was the biggest bummer ever. Basically you drop down tiles, and then you tap to spell words, and then you and your friend try to spell words and steal tiles back. The guy with the most tiles of their color at the end of the game wins.
And John hasn't taken his turn yet.
But
So
sorry.
that's all right. But the basic, I'm sure you've played Words with Friends, or at least have seen Words with Friends. The basic turn structure of the game is very similar to that. You make a move, then it sends that move off to the other player. You see a nice ad in between, unless you upgraded to the premium version. That's what pays for me to live. And, and then your friend takes his turn. You can have lots of games going on at one time. Well, hopefully John can spell a word here.
Yes, I can spell words.
And then I'll show you one quick move that will. Spelling on the spot is not easy, I understand. So.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Provided our servers are working, that should show up in just a sec. Back out. All right, it's my turn.
Yay.
Just go through one quick move. Now, in this game, we both share the same letter tray, which is kind of an interesting twist as well.
Right.
And I can see here that John played hot. Now, the goal of this game is, at the end of it, I want the most of the board covered up in my colored tiles. I'm the blue player. And let's see here. Now I'm spelling on the spot. If you see a word, holler.
Foot. Spell foot.
We'll do foot. There we go. And what I can do is I put one new tile, or as many new tiles as I can out there, and then I can spell in any direction. And I've stolen some of his tiles there, so I'll play that.
Yeah, the game is really about blocking steals. It's kind of like chess a little bit in that way, where there's like an early game, a mid game, and an end game, and you want to set yourself up for the last move, and that's a big part of the strategy. It's surprisingly very strategic game.
And so it's a fairly simple game, and so what I think one of the most interesting things about the development of it is, well, how did we come up with this simple idea? We said, all right, we're making an iPhone game. Go. What do you do next? And so what our company decided to do is have a game jam. And in that game jam, let me bring up my full screen again. We had everybody in the company make a game. And I think we took maybe 2 or 3 days at first.
It's like two days, yeah.
2 days or so. Everybody make a game. You could either team up with somebody, or you could just make something on your own. Obviously, these are not full games. These are terrible, terrible little slices of an idea. And then, from there, we vote on what did everybody think was fun, and kind of group people together into those ideas, spend another week on it, and see where it goes. And it started with.
Yeah, so the game that won, this one came in second.
Yes.
So this game that came in second was made by the former CTO of EA Sports, which is crazy. That guy ended up writing action script and making this game. So you go from a CTO to writing action script in a game jam or whatever. It's weird. Trust me. So he makes this game. It's about 2 kids in a treehouse, and they have to build to defend defend their treehouse, and then you hit a button and they start firing like rocks and stuff at each other. That came in second. So we took this and we spun on that idea for a little bit, and we figured out that building things is kind of boring, or at least it was in the way we were doing it. So we were like, how do we make building an actual fun activity? So one of the engineers, named Ben Burbank, he works at Double Fine now. Do you guys know where that is? Psychonauts, those guys. So he works there now. He left our company. He works there. He came up with the idea to make the building part of the game a word game. So that's what this is right here. So the game changed from being about two kids protecting each other's forts that you built in tree houses to being about protecting eggs. And the stuff you see here is, there's letters down at the bottom. There's a couple eggs, 3 eggs I think you have to protect, and you build words. Then at the end of this, you fired rocks or something to try to destroy the protected word, or to try to destroy the eggs. So you'd fire and you'd break these blocks up. Some of them were glass, some of them were wood, some of them were stone. So you could break through stuff easier or whatever. The building became fun, but the breaking the stuff was really awful. So he kind of gave up and he started making like a physics replay system or something. He was just like, I'm done doing this. So he peeled off and he started doing that. And then I took the idea and then I kind of stewed on it for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, well, a word game is a good idea, I think. It has a really broad appeal. Anybody can kind of spell letters, and like, we wanted to make a game that was anybody could play, I guess. So then I started thinking about what's like a common theme between games that anybody can play, and it's usually things built around life skills, early life skills, things you learn really early in your life. So like vocabulary or stacking things or knocking things down, like spatial reasoning or whatever. So then I took the spelling and vocabulary ideas and the building and stuff from the previous games and the protection kind of themes, and I researched a bunch of just board games and stuff. So I looked at the history of Scrabble, I looked at chess, I looked at Go, all kinds of ancient Senet, the old board game from Egypt. So like I looked at all the history of the stuff, then I started thinking about what could be a fun thing to do, and then my notes are there. I think you can kind of see them a little bit. All the stuff is there, like changing things your color, getting the most tiles of your board, and then I did a little sketch, and I'm like, okay, this is it. I think this is a thing. So I started looking at all the word games out there, and I'm like, okay, why has nobody done this before? And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll prototype it. So I took the thing that Ben had done, and I tweaked it and changed it, coded it up, and then I ended up with this thing right there, which is stacking blocks and changing your color and tapping. So the guts of the game were done maybe a week after the game jam, something like that.
Sometime in April?
April, yeah, like middle of April, something like that. Once I had the thing, kind of the prototype done, I took it home, and I played it with my fiance. And I'm like, hey, do you want to play this game? And she's like, sure. She's being nice, like she always does. Like, okay, I'll be nice and then play the game. So we start playing. I tell her the rules, because at this point, all rules aren't implemented. It's kind of honor system. So like, a bunch of the stuff was there, but the major things that would stop you from doing like cheating weren't there. So I told her the rules. We played a little bit. She's watching some show she really likes. I don't really remember what it is, but she's watching TV. She stops watching TV to play the game with me, and I'm like, okay, I think this is actually a thing. So then she never does that. It's normally like, oh yeah, that's great, honey, you know, good job. And then she just ignores me and then goes back to TV or something. So then I go in the next day and at the office, I'm like, hey guys, I think I got it. So then I come in, I let people play, and then they start playing, and everybody's like, man, this is great. This is really fun. So then we kind of started to make it, and that's just how it went.
And then it was done like 6 or 7 months later.
What took so long?
My favorite thing about how this game started, again, is just, you know, there's some weird dialogue box on the screen. I don't know how to get rid of that at the moment. It's not on my screen. But just this letter spelling game started from this just horrible drawing by one of our engineers of some tree houses. That's pretty cool. But so we were ready to build it. We all thought it was fun. We all thought it was cool. Like, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
And
Sorry,
oh, no, yeah.
The reason we picked this game instead of a larger game, we had some other larger game ideas at the same time. I think you made some fun physicsy game.
Mhm.
The reason we chose this one instead of some of the other ones is because we thought this would be the fastest one to make. It's like, oh, we'll do this in like 3 months or 2 months or something like that. This will be so easy. Go ahead.
And it wasn't.
It takes a long time.
So first move, what I was primarily involved with a lot in the beginning was making the look for this game. This image up here is about as far as John took it, and while that's pretty good,
Yeah.
I guess.
Sorry, yeah.
Kidding.
Only the tiles.
Yeah, we figured, but again, we figured this is not going to be that hard. You know, it's just a grid, it's some tiles. You know, what could there be? Well, it turns out that it's very hard. There's not that much to work with. You know, when we made like Woodland Heroes or something, if the game didn't look cool enough, well, we could just have some of the artists make some cooler looking characters. You know, throw some more stuff on it, and it eventually gets good. There's really nothing to work with here. The other challenge we had was there's a lot of word games. You know, Words with Friends, Boggle, Ruzzle now. We wanted to make sure that when you saw a screenshot of the game that you knew that it was our game. You knew that you weren't looking at Words with Friends, even though it appeared to be very similar. So a little bit of a challenge there. We started out, you know, I just started making some bricks, making some little tiles, and they never quite felt right. They never had a very good character. We eventually realized that we needed to make our own font.
I described it as a 1970s Philip Morris cigarette executive boardroom. That's that look for me. Yeah.
But we had someone come in and they made an awesome hand-drawn font, and I think that really added a lot to the character. Eventually, you know, you could kind of see in the tiles here, I don't know if it's Arial or what, but it's just some generic blah. And it ended up looking cool with the font. What John was kind of John had the original idea, and he was the project manager. You know, he kind of ran this thing. And his feedback to me was he didn't really care what it looked like.
Right.
He just wanted to make sure it was fun, or it looked fun, whatever that means. And that it would be cool if we could someday make this into a real board game,
Yeah.
which has practical, that would be tough. But that was kind of the direction. This should be something physical. So we started kind of making it like, okay, what if it's like this wooden thing? And these don't look very good, but that's a start. Another good trick is never put something good first. You know, if you're making something, everybody's gonna hate it anyway, whatever it is, that's the first thing. So give them something that's not quite as good. And we kind of spun around on just a bunch of random ideas and just weren't getting anywhere. So finally I said, well, let's pick some sort of a path. You know, whether this is the path we go down or not, let's just pick a path and walk it. And so we went with this kind of retro thing. You know, I grabbed a bunch of images of just some old, fun retro stuff. You know, that was the flavor of the week that week for whatever reason. And one of those images, hopefully it's not covered up by this dialogue box, which again isn't showing up on my screen. I don't know what that is. It was these two guys playing Battleship, probably from like the 50s or something. And I took that, and it's completely covered where our game would be. That's unfortunate. See if I can fix that real quick.
Brian, I think, if you escape out, I thought I saw it on your screen.
Let me just quit over here. See if that
Yeah, that got rid of it.
fixes anything. Hey, look at that. It's computer genius over here. Oh, but anyway, so we made this. I kind of made this as a joke, just to.
Right.
I think everybody else was in some big meeting, and I didn't want to be working on whatever I was supposed to be working on. And I
Yeah,
was
you
sick
were-
of making tiles, and
you were
so I
done
just
by
thought this
that
was kind of
point.
funny. And I was like, what if this game actually was a game that people played in the 50s? And it's like, the hit game you remember as a kid, but now it's on your phone, and you don't have to keep score yourself. And that was kind of funny. We liked it, and we ended up kind of spinning on a retro look like that, and sort of settled on this rough layout of the game. It would eventually change quite a bit still, but at least we had kind of a direction now. We knew where the art wanted to go. John still would say every day that it doesn't look fun enough, and I would be like, what does that mean? And he would just say, I don't know, it's just not fun, and
Yeah.
we'd get very upset with each other.
Brian hated me for a little bit there.
A
It was
little bit.
awesome.
That's the good thing about working with somebody for a long time, though, is you can hate them,
Yeah.
and it's still okay. And yeah, so every day I'd come in and do different colors and different treatments, and you're probably looking at these slides saying, like, how many of these slides are we going to look at of just grids of letters? And that was my life for, like, 3 months. I'd come into work and look at that same screen and just change tiny things until finally we settled on something that we could all agree with. And so, like it says up there, it says, now it's done until we change it someday. And
Right.
the pitfall of running a live game is that somebody's going to get sick of whatever you do at some point, and we have to change it.
Game development in general.
You can save all that because now you have skins that you can sell. too.
Exactly. I've got all the. I've got a lot of terrible ideas in the throwaway folder we can use. So, but that was kind of the art portion of it, and we wrapped up what that should look like. I'd say in August or so.
Something like that.
And now, granted, that sounds like a very long time span. We're working on other things as well. This isn't the only project we were building. Kind of around this time, though, we decided like this was the best thing we had going, and we should kind of focus everybody into building this.
Just go ahead and get it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. On the tech side, and neither of us are engineers, we both do a lot of scripting. We both wrote a lot of code for this game, but we're not engineers, so don't know as deep into the tech side, and not sure what your guys' familiarity with it is, but that was another huge part of the process, obviously.
Right. The stuff that actually took the longest was all the infrastructure for like an asynchronous with friends game. So things we didn't anticipate were things like we have to set up some kind of notification server so people can get notifications back and forth when they play their turns. It's like, oh, okay, well, duh, but we didn't think about it up front. All the stuff to save people's games on the server, all the just tons of stuff with just async word games or async games in general. I mean, if we had to make another one again, we could do it pretty quickly, relatively quickly. The coding of the game was done in like the base guts of the game. It was done in like 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. It was very quick, but all the server stuff, the look, the usability, making sure people understood all the rules to the game. Like, if someone downloads the game, are they going to be able to pick it up and play, or are they just going to bail on it? They're confused, or they're not going to know how to do stuff. So, like, all of that polishing and shining and all that stuff, that's what takes the longest.
We also made the decision early on that we were going to put this out on iOS and Android at the same time. We didn't. Oh, go ahead.
And Kindle and Facebook.
And Kindle and Facebook,
Yeah,
so
everything.
we have succeeded. But we just got iOS and Android. But even that, doing that from up front really added to the tech time. You mentioned notifications, for example. Well, that just kind of worked on an iPhone. Apple has something built in for that, and it's great. But then Android doesn't.
Right.
You need to kind of write your own system and make sure that it works back and forth. Little things that aren't little things, like the fact that there's 300 different sized Android screens and you never quite know what you're going to get. We had to engineer the game in a way that it's going to draw properly on whatever ratio you have, whatever DPI the screen has, or any of that stuff. And not the most fun thing to work on, but took a long time. So we wrote the game in ActionScript. We debated a lot on what platforms to run on, and there's definitely pros and cons to it. It doesn't run quite as well as I think either of us would like.
Oh, yeah, it's slower than it should be.
But we already had a lot of ActionScript infrastructure from some of our previous games. We also knew that we want the game to be on Facebook as well. And some of the other game engines like Unity or something like that don't run as easily. You need to install a plugin. We were worried that people wouldn't go through those hoops from some games we've seen in the past. And so ended up deciding on ActionScript with kind of our own custom rendering solution. It's sort of a 3D game, even though it's 2D,
Right.
which is strange.
Yeah. It uses Stage 30 or whatever.
Exactly.
Starling engine.
And we did that. It turns out that it runs a lot faster, too. You can use the GPU on the phones to run 3D. So even with 2D stuff, we're just mapping everything onto polygons. Runs a lot smoother. But you have a lot more asset preparation time. So this crazy image up on the screen now, that's all the textures that are in our game. And we build this thing through some kind of texture packer, and it keeps a XML file of where all the images are loaded. And, you load these things up through GameScript, and that image right now, I guess it's 1024 by 512.
That one?
Yeah.
I think it's 2048 by something.
Okay, it's big.
1024. Yeah, it's giant.
But we're always working, as I'm making the art for the thing, I can put anything into the game as long as it doesn't make that thing get bigger than that rectangle. once you put a new image in that makes it too big, and so start over, move the stuff all around again, and go back to it. Let's see. And then we can elaborate more on the tech if you have questions about that, but it's not as much our forte. So as John kind of alluded to, that's...
Yeah, so when you're making a game, right, like one of the most important things is watching people play your game. So many games, and lots of times at EA, we would just build something and then not have anybody play it. So people would start to play the game and they're just completely lost. They don't know what to do. With this game, like, we had so many people play it, and we would just get, because it was a game for everybody, we would just get random people from the office. The office we work in is shared between a bunch of different companies. One is Voxeo, one is us, and a bunch of other different little companies. So I would just send out an email and say, hey, anybody want to come play our game? So it'd be like, random office workers in this building coming and playing our game for the first time, coming to it new, playing it and being completely lost. And you're like, man, I really thought they would understand how to do that. So then, like, our tutorial went from just screens, just blank screens that said, this is how you play the game. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. No one would read any of the text. No one would read anything about the stuff. They would just go tap, 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 start trying to play, and then they'd be like, I don't even know what to do. They'd look over at me, hey, what do I do? So then we're like, okay, we have to have some kind of interactivity. So we built a big system to make tutorial changes really quickly. It took us 2 or 3 months to get the tutorial right, and that's with like testing every other day, something like that. We finally got to a point where we're like, okay, this is pretty good. We could have random people play the game that had never played the game before. They could play each other fine, and they'd have fun. We're like, okay, I think this is good. We can do this. And there's still some things that we'd like to change about it. Like we don't talk about bombs. We don't. There's stuff that's missing, but it's good. It works.
I may pull the tutorial up in a bit after this. You can silently walk through it so you can see. But yeah, we eventually changed it to be like you're playing an AI opponent.
Right.
And the amount of steps in there, it would, because any piece of feedback that we got, from play tests usually meant we had to go rework something else. It's like, it's not clear that I'm stealing tiles. Well, that probably means the animations are wrong. Or it's not clear that, doing action X is better than action Y. We need to highlight that in some way. We need to change it. So lots and lots of going back to the drawing board just to get that part feeling right. Because it's a...
And from the playtest, we would also see like, we have to change some of the feedback inside the game. So like when people tap tiles, what should that do? all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, and little things like, as you're spelling words out, it has escalating audio.
Right.
Like dun 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 dun.
Right.
We used better sound than that, but. And then when we were finally done, which wasn't really done, it's time to test it. And when we worked at Electronic Arts, we had an army of people that tested stuff. And it was great in a way. But you send a build out, people would test it, they'd file bugs and all that. We don't have any of that at our company. We're small still. I think we have 20-ish people.
20-ish, something like that.
So we were QA. So during the day, we're building the game, and then at night, you're going home and playing the game, and having to log all that stuff ourselves, it was not easy. We used a cool program called Test Flight that let us send out kind of these beta invitations to the game, so we did have some random users at least playing that we could collect data on. They weren't really bug reporting, but at least we had an audience we could see. And then like John mentioned, we would bring in just anyone else from around the building. We'd grab them, and usually they would want to come play a game rather than accounting or whatever it is that they do in the other companies.
Yeah.
They'd be happy to come help. So eventually got it tested to the point where we felt it was good enough.
Except Android.
Except Android.
So Android has that problem where there's a million Android phones, and developing games for it is really kind of a big pain in the butt. So we we're like, okay, what do we do? So we used everybody who had an Android phone in the office. It's like 3 people. So like, we'd fix bugs that we'd find on their phone, and then we'd go, does anybody else have, an Android device? And nobody had any. So then we're like, okay, well, should we just buy every, the top phones? And that's really expensive to buy unlocked Android, every device possible or whatever. So then we're like, okay, well, maybe we can do automated stuff. So we looked into automated testing on the cloud or whatever. Didn't do that because it's just a hassle. You have to write test scripts and you have to do all this stuff, and we wanted to ship the game. So then we also looked into out-of-house QA. That's pretty expensive. It's like $6,000 or something, sometimes more, depending on what you want to do. And we're like, maybe it doesn't matter. So then we're like, okay, we'll just put it out. So we just put it out.
And it's worked pretty well.
We don't get any serious crashes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Our engineers are sort of good at their job.
It also didn't help that every time the game got delayed a little bit, we'd expect to put it out in September. And then we say, okay, never mind October. Never mind November. Every time that happened, then Apple would like, oh, hey, iPhone 5.
Right.
Oh, hey, iPad mini. Somebody go buy that. Now we need to test on that thing too. So then we eventually launched. We launched at the end of November, and it did really well for a while. We hit #1 in Word and board games.
Right.
The weekend we launched, we rose up to number 18 in games and number 29 in all apps. And we have a lot of good ratings.
People love the game. People that play the game love the game.
Yes.
The problem is getting people to play your game.
Yes. And that's the big, scary challenge of mobile, I think, is, there is an ocean of apps out there. And no matter how good your thing is, you're still just a drop into that ocean, and getting it so you get enough users. We started off, we had some publishing partners that we kind of worked with.
Right. I think there's like 700,000 iOS apps or something like that. It's crazy. And what makes your game any better than any other game, right? It's just a word game, So getting an audience is super difficult, incredibly difficult. Even if your game is really good, there's lots of good games that don't get discovered for years or months or something. I can't remember how many times I've read, a game doesn't do anything, and then 7 months later, Apple decides to feature it, and then boom, they're a huge hit.
Exactly, and it's a big catch-22 also because, people we would talk to in the mobile industry would say, what's the best way to get to #1? And they'd say, well, be number 2. Well, what's the best way to be number 2? Well, get into the top 5.
Yeah, get in the top 25.
Yeah. The best way to be successful is to get into the top 25. And
Right.
it's okay? And it makes sense. You know, when I'm looking for an app, I just look to the sidebar in iTunes, or I look at whatever's featured. And once you're featured, it's like a snowball. You know, people see your game, and then more people download your game. And now you move up, and even more people see your game.
Yeah, the longer you're there, it's like, well, what is this? I guess I'll finally try it because it's still here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the trick is getting up there. The other trick, as I'm sure you've seen, is, you know, there's clone games.
Yep.
There's, like, I think right now in the top 3, there's 2 of the exact same game. It's like What's My Word and What's My Word 4 Pictures, but the exact same game. You know, one of them's a ripoff of the other one. They both kind of just ridden some coattails up to the top.
The first one is the original.
The original,
four-
What's My Word.
Four-picture game.
I remember the weekend that we launched, the #1 game that just would not move out of #1, it was like Dental Surgeon or something. And
Dental
we're all just
surgery
like,
or something like
what
that.
is this? I never would have looked at it if it wouldn't have been that weekend. You open it up and you're like looking into a dog's mouth and pulling his teeth out. It was just like, how did they get all the way to #1? And we have no idea. You know, it's kind of a big mystery how those charts really work.
Right. There's like the creative director of our studio is like, you know, we think there's like Russian groups that download lots of apps or something. It's like, okay, whatever.
Nothing against Russians, if
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
any Russians in here.
Some of my best friends are Russian.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so now that it's out, what do we do? Back in our EA days, it was almost kind of nice because it would be out and that would be it. You hoped it did well,
Yeah,
and you were kind of done with it.
You put the game out, you wait for the review scores to pile in, and you look at the sales numbers. You're like, oh, okay, you know, it's selling 5 million copies. You know, it's Madden. It sells itself. You
Mhm.
know,
Which on one hand was nice. On the
Yeah.
other hand, if something was wrong, you couldn't fix it, and that was a little disheartening. But that's not the world we live in anymore. So now what we do is we support the game. And you know, what's that mean? Well, for a long time, what it really means is just collecting data about it. You know, we put lots and lots of hooks into the game as we built it, so we can, you know, monitor activity, see what people enjoy, how many games do you have going at one time, all kinds of things like that.
well, you know, like how many people, or how is the game spreading among friends and stuff like that? How long do people play when they play sessions? How many games do they play? How many turns do they take in a day? You know, how often do they come back to the game? And, you know, that's retention. Our retention numbers are extraordinarily good. Yeah, like it's so much work after launching the game. It's crazy. It's like a complete change from how it was doing, you know, AAA console development, going to this games as a service thing, which is now a thing. It's so much work, you know, customer service and making sure the servers are always up and making sure that people are buying the stuff in the game and they're coming back to the game and they're telling their friends about the game and you're running offers all the time. It's almost like running like a used car lot or something now. You always have to get people in the door, like that kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing. It's really weird. It's very different.
And at a small company, like whenever you see customer service or something like that, I picture some sort of call center or something like that. Like he's customer service.
Yeah.
So
No, actually, it's Fernando now.
I mean, we just offloaded that,
Yeah,
but yeah, it would
huge.
be. You know, if there's some sort of a problem with the game and you hit that, it just sends him an email.
Yeah.
He would respond.
I don't. Don't send me any emails, please.
No, don't send John emails. But then what we look at is we look at that data and we say, well, you know, what's the most productive thing we can do now based on that data? You know, choices we have and things we're working on, or you know, adding new features to the game,
Right.
Putting it out on different platforms. Like I said, we want it on Facebook and Kindle Fire. Or we're out on Kindle Fire now.
Localization.
Localization, adding new languages to the game. You know, people don't just speak English. The Russians might be interested in it, from what I hear. And then the other thing we do, a big part of our company, we don't really work in it, but we have an analytics tool that we use. And so we'll run these A/B tests in the game. You know, a really simple example I have up here is when you get a notification in the game that it's your turn, you know, that could say anything. And so we'll split our user base into different segments and send different ones different messages and then record the outcome. You know, so did more people respond quickly when we said, you know, Jeremy Paulding started a game with you and played Fed? Or Jeremy Paulding played Fed. Can you steal his word? You know, and we'll have a bunch of different, that's a real simple concept. But we'll do that throughout the game on things. We'll put little simple variants in that don't affect the gameplay or anything. It's not giving anybody an advantage. But then we can just see what's the most successful and make an educated guess rather than just a guess, which is what we're used to doing.
Yeah. What you said.
And that's all there is to game development. So
Right. Then you high five, and then you make the monies, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.